I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to walk away from his own family mid-vacation, but when I saw what they really thought of me, written out, word for word, in their own group chat, something in me just broke. I'm not talking about some silly inside joke or harmless teasing. I'm talking about betrayal with a smirk, dressed up as sarcasm, layered under years of resentment they never had the guts to say out loud. And the worst part? I paid for everything. The rental house, the flights, the meals, the gas, the excursions, every stupid matching hoodie. All of it. I shelled out over $5,000 thinking I was doing something kind, something memorable. I thought I was helping us reconnect. I thought I was finally being seen. Turns out, I was just giving them new material to laugh at. My name's Noah. I'm 33, live alone in a decently quiet part of Oregon, and by all external measures, I guess you could say I'm doing okay. I've got a stable remote job in tech, a modest house I paid off early, and no debt to speak of. I'm not flashy about it. I drive a used Subaru, still use an iPhone 12, and cook most of my meals at home. But I've always had this lingering chip on my shoulder when it comes to my family. My younger brother Caleb is 29, loud, charming, naturally athletic, and the sort of guy people just instinctively like. He's the golden boy. My older sister Megan is 36, sharp as a knife, always on the go, a mother of two with a tendency to steamroll conversations without noticing. My parents, now retired, are nice enough in that smile politely and never dig too deep kind of way. We don't fight. We don't get vulnerable. We do polite holidays and occasional calls, and that's it. I've always been the background character in this family, reliable, quiet, always offering to help. Never quite included, but always expected to show up. 2 years ago, I had this idea. I thought maybe what we needed was a proper trip. Not just a long weekend or another awkward Thanksgiving dinner. A real family vacation. Something with sunshine, ocean air, and no room to make excuses. I figured if I planned everything, paid for it all, and kept things simple, maybe we'd start to feel like more than just a group of people who happened to be related. Maybe we could feel like a family again. I pitched it during our Christmas gathering, the one where Megan's youngest threw up on the couch, and Caleb spent the whole night scrolling Instagram. I stood up with a smile, trying not to sound too eager, and said, "What if we all did a beach trip next summer? My treat. I'll book the house, cover the flights, take care of food. You just show up." They all looked at me like I'd grown a second head. Then my mom said, "Oh, honey, that's generous." And Megan immediately started asking about logistics, like what dates and whether the house would be kid-proof. Caleb joked about needing good Wi-Fi and at least one bar with cute bartenders. No one said thank you, but they didn't say no, either. So I went ahead and made it happen. I spent weeks combing through rental listings, comparing flight options, planning kid-friendly activities and adult-friendly dinners. I rented a big house on the coast in California, walking distance from the beach, with a hot tub and enough rooms for everyone. I booked flights, rental cars, even reserved a local seafood place for our first night. I made sure there were snacks for the kids, drinks for the adults, and groceries for breakfasts. I paid the deposits up front and sent everyone detailed itineraries in a shared Google Drive. Megan didn't open it. Caleb said, "Sick," and then disappeared for 3 weeks. But again, no one said no. When the trip finally came around, I was nervous, more than I wanted to admit. I landed early and picked everyone up from the airport, smiling like some overeager Airbnb host. Megan looked exhausted, juggling 2 car seats and snapping at her husband. Caleb showed up with only a backpack and asked if there'd be beer at the house. My parents were the last ones out, my dad limping slightly from his recent hip replacement, my mom carrying way too much luggage for a 5-day trip. I handled all of it. I loaded the bags, drove the rental, checked us in, got groceries that first night while everyone else rested. I cooked dinner while Caleb watched TV and Megan scrolled on her phone. When I finally sat down to eat, no one had waited. The kids were already upstairs playing with the sand toys I bought them. My mom said, "This is lovely, Noah," while staring at her plate. My dad just nodded and said, "Good fish." Megan asked if there was almond milk. Caleb said nothing. Still, I kept telling myself it was worth it. That this was just the warm-up. That once we were settled in and had a couple of beach days, things would loosen up. I tried not to let it bother me when Caleb didn't offer to split the grocery bill or when Megan commandeered the nicest bedroom for her kids without asking. I told myself it was fine when my mom offered to fix the eggs after I'd already made breakfast, then remade the entire thing. I even let it go when Caleb borrowed my charger without asking and somehow lost it at the beach. I was trying so hard to be the bigger person, to be the glue, to be the one who finally made our family feel like one. The first real crack happened on the second night. We were sitting on the patio after dinner, the one meal we all ate together without someone getting up halfway through, and Caleb was scrolling his phone, snickering to himself. Megan was helping her daughter with a puzzle, and my mom was sipping wine, staring at the ocean. Caleb looked up, grinned, and said, "Man, some people really think money buys connection, huh?" I looked at him, confused. "What do you mean?" I asked. He shrugged. "Just saying. It's funny how some folks think booking a house makes them a hero or something." Megan chuckled, not looking up. "Well, better than doing nothing, I guess," she said. My stomach turned. I wanted to ask if they were talking about me, but I didn't. I just laughed along and told myself I was being paranoid. That night, after everyone went to bed, I sat in the living room, scrolling through pictures I'd taken of the day, the kids building a sandcastle, my dad dozing off under an umbrella, Megan laughing at something her husband said. I felt this strange, aching warmth. Like maybe all the effort was finally worth something. Maybe they'd remember this. Maybe they'd see me differently. I was still smiling when Caleb came down the stairs, yawning and holding his phone. "Hey, man, my phone's dead," he said. "Mind if I borrow yours to call Amber?" His on-again, off-again girlfriend, I assumed. I handed it over without hesitation. "Sure," I said. "Lock code's 2007. He nodded, called her, paced the patio for a few minutes, then came back inside. "Thanks," he said, tossing it gently on the couch. I picked it up after he left and saw that a bunch of apps were still open. Texts, GroupMe, Instagram. I went to close them out. That's when I saw it. A group chat titled FamJam, Noah Free. I paused. The name stung. My thumb hovered. I told myself not to look, that I was probably misunderstanding, that maybe it was an old thread from college. But my name was right there. A new message at the top. From Megan. I tapped it open. What I saw made my face go cold. The first message that popped up was from Megan. "Did you see how he laid out all the beach towels like we're staying at a resort?" Followed by a laughing emoji. Then Caleb. "Bro thinks he's some kind of dad now, just waiting for him to schedule a family bonding circle after dinner." Megan again. All this just to feel included. It's kind of sad if you think about it. And this one physically hurt, my mom. Well, at least he's trying. Some people express love with money, I guess. My dad didn't comment, but he left a thumbs-up reaction. A thumbs up, like he approved. I kept scrolling. There were pages and pages of this stuff. Every little thing I'd done had been twisted into a punchline. When I bought extra sunscreen and aloe vera because Megan's kid got burnt the first day, Caleb wrote, "He's doing the full dad cosplay. What's next? Personalized fanny packs." Megan replied, "Stop it, loudly crying face. I wouldn't be surprised if he gave us all laminated itineraries." My mom added, "I just hope he doesn't think this means we owe him anything." There was more. So much more. He really thinks this trip makes up for all those years of not showing up. Cute. All this effort just to be seen. He doesn't even realize we've already moved on without him. Let him play vacation host. Just keep smiling so he doesn't go full sad boy on us. I sat there on the couch, phone trembling in my hand. Every word I read dug in deeper. I could feel the heat in my chest crawling up into my neck. I kept blinking, hoping the words would rearrange themselves into something less cruel. But they didn't. They stayed there, burned into the screen, like someone had taken every passing doubt I'd ever had about my place in this family and finally confirmed it with receipts. The worst part? I'd believed, really, deeply believed, that I was building something good here, that I was finally being included. And instead, I was the punchline to a private joke I never even knew existed. The room was so quiet I could hear the fridge humming in the kitchen. Everyone else was asleep. Outside, the waves kept rolling in like nothing had happened. I stared at the screen for what felt like an hour. Eventually, I set the phone face down on the coffee table, walked outside barefoot, and sat on the deck in the cold coastal air, knees pulled to my chest like I was 10 years old again. And that's when I started thinking, not just about what I'd read, but about everything that came before it. It's strange how fast memories sharpen when you're hurt. Little things I'd brushed off suddenly felt razor sharp. Megan never once asked me how work was going. Caleb used my car to get beer and didn't even refill the tank. When I offered to take their kids out for mini golf so they could have a date night, Megan told me, "You don't need to keep trying so hard." My mom kept asking me if I was seeing anyone yet, then sighing like the answer disappointed her every time. My dad had said exactly 7 sentences to me since we arrived. The next morning, I didn't say anything. I acted like everything was fine. I made pancakes for everyone. Even remembered to do vegan ones for Megan's husband, which he didn't even touch. I loaded the dishwasher. I laughed when Caleb told a story about his high school friends. I helped my dad down to the beach and set up the umbrella. All the while, I kept thinking, they have no idea I know. But once the illusion cracks, it doesn't uncrack. Everything started feeling performative, brittle. Like we were all actors in some clumsy play where I was the fool dressed in generosity. On day 3, things really tipped. That morning, I was walking back from a coffee run. Yes, for everyone, with their orders noted in my phone, when I overheard Caleb on the phone. He was on the patio, pacing, talking low. I slowed my steps just enough to hear, staying behind the half-closed sliding door. "She's already said we can crash at her place in LA after this," he was saying. "Honestly, thank God, dude. I'm losing my mind with Mr. Cruise Director. If I have to sit through one more of his family moments, I'm gonna puke." A pause. Then a chuckle. "Nah, he paid for everything. Flights, house, food, all him. It's like his sad little redemption tour. Megan calls it the guilt trip. Pretty accurate, huh?" I stepped back before I heard more. Walked around the side of the house, waited 5 minutes, and came back in through the front like nothing happened. Caleb gave me a nod, took his caramel macchiato without thanks, and walked off to scroll on the couch. The rest of the day felt like I was watching a slow-motion collapse. Every comment, every glance, every moment of silence echoed louder. At dinner, my mom told Megan how sweet it was that she brought homemade cookies. Megan beamed. I had cooked the actual meal. No mention. At one point, Megan told me to stop hovering when I tried to help her kids with their sand toys. My dad asked me to turn down the music on the patio, music that Caleb had chosen. Megan's husband offered to take over grilling but handed the tongs back to me 5 minutes later because he didn't know how to work the temp settings. That night, I went to bed early, but not before triple-checking every reservation and charge I had lined up in my name. It's weird how fast it happens. The moment when disappointment turns into clarity. When the voice in your head finally says, "They're not going to change. You don't have to keep trying." The breaking point came the next morning. I'd gone out early for another grocery run because, of course, no one else thought to. I figured I'd stock up on snacks, drinks, and maybe pastries for breakfast. It was our 4th day in, and I was still clinging to this ghost of hope that maybe, just maybe, things could still turn around. When I came back, I parked outside and immediately noticed something off. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I walked in through the front door, balancing bags on both arms. And there, at the kitchen table, was Megan, Caleb, and my mom. Caleb had his phone out, and they were all looking at it. My mom looked up at me like a kid caught stealing cookies. Megan froze. Caleb didn't. He just smirked. "Hey, Noah, you ever think about how weird it is that you're the only one not in the group chat?" I froze. Something about his voice. The way he said it. Like it was a joke, but not really. Megan muttered, "Caleb," but he just kept going. "No, seriously. We've had it for months now. All the trip planning and stuff? Yeah, we moved it out of the main chat 'cause you were getting intense." Megan added, "We didn't mean anything by it. You were just kind of overwhelming. The spreadsheets, the daily plans, it was a lot." I set the bags down slowly. "You made a group chat, without me," I said, my voice quiet. Caleb shrugged. "Don't take it so personally, man. You know you can be a little much. Always planning things, double-checking, trying to make everything perfect." Megan nodded. "We just wanted space to vent. That's all. You didn't do anything wrong." I laughed. I actually laughed, which seemed to throw them off. "Noah," my mom started gently, "you've always had a big heart. But sometimes, people need to make their own plans too. You don't have to control everything." Control. That word echoed in my head like a slap. I wasn't trying to control anything. I was trying to give, to share, to build. And they saw it as control. That's when Caleb, sweet, always charming Caleb, delivered the final punch. "Look," he said, standing up. "You don't have to keep buying our love, bro. We're family. You don't need to pay for everything just to be included. Something snapped in me. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stood there and stared at them. These people I'd bent over backwards for. People I thought I loved. People who thought love was something I was trying to purchase. And in that quiet moment, something shifted. I calmly picked up my phone, opened the airline app, booked the earliest flight back home. Then I opened every reservation in my name. Rental cars, excursions, dinner bookings, even the theme park tickets for the kids. And I canceled every single one. But I didn't say anything. Not yet. I had one more thing to do. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed with my eyes wide open, the sound of the waves outside mocking me with their rhythm. Everyone else was asleep, or at least pretending to be, and I was in the upstairs guest room, staring at the ceiling like it held answers. Every few minutes, my mind looped another line from that group chat. Another joke at my expense. Another smile that now felt fake in hindsight. The emotional whiplash was unreal. I went from being the glue trying to hold this family together to realizing I was just duct tape on something they didn't even want fixed. But something strange happened during those silent hours. The ache started to dull. It didn't go away, not even close, but it changed, hardened, turned into something sharp and solid. And somewhere around 3 a.m., I stopped feeling the need to cry. I started planning. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. I didn't shower. I didn't brush my teeth. I just got dressed, grabbed my backpack, and walked into the kitchen. The house was quiet, still, like it knew what was about to happen. I took a sticky note from the drawer and a Sharpie from the junk cup by the fridge. I wrote, slowly and deliberately. Didn't realize generosity was something to laugh at. Enjoy the bill. I stuck it dead center on the fridge door. Then I walked out. I called an Uber to the airport, got through security, and sat by my gate 4 hours early. It wasn't even 9 a.m. yet. My flight was the only thing moving forward in my life at that moment. Everything else felt like it had stalled. But somehow I felt still. No more spiraling. No more trying to replay every conversation. Just stillness. As I boarded the plane, I didn't look back. I didn't check my phone. I didn't send a message. I didn't even post on social media. Let them find out on their own, after they'd finished their breakfast. It was a long flight, and I had time to think. And that's where the real fall began. Because you can leave a place. You can walk away. You can even cancel the credit card that paid for the rental car, which I absolutely did. Enjoy that hold fee, Megan. But what you can't leave behind is the feeling of betrayal. It clings to you like salt water in your clothes. The plane landed, and I got home, unlocked my front door, stepped inside, and then just stood there. In the quiet. In the emptiness. And I broke. I didn't even make it to the couch. I sat on the floor, back against the wall, and let it all out. All the things I didn't let myself feel at the rental house. The humiliation. The bitterness. The raw, bleeding ache of realizing you were never really seen. Not the way you hoped. Not the way you tried to be. I cried. Ugly, heaving sobs that left me lightheaded. I hadn't cried like that in years. Maybe ever. That was rock bottom. I spent the next day in pajamas. I didn't answer calls. I didn't check texts. My phone buzzed a few times. One from Megan, one from Caleb, and a long, rambling one from my mom that started with, "We're worried about you," and ended with, "We didn't mean to hurt you." I didn't read them. I couldn't. Not yet. I ordered takeout. I watched a documentary with the volume too low. I sat in my backyard until it got cold. I didn't talk to anyone. But on the third day, something shifted. It started with eggs. I woke up early. Not on purpose. My body just didn't want to sleep anymore. I went to the kitchen, opened the fridge, and saw a carton of eggs. So I cooked. Nothing fancy. Just scrambled eggs, toast, black coffee. The smell filled the house. And for some reason, it made me feel human again. I sat down, took a bite, and thought, okay, one normal thing. One thing that's mine. Then I opened my laptop. I hadn't checked my work email since the trip began. My company wasn't the kind to breathe down your neck during PTO, but I figured there'd be a few things needing my attention. What I didn't expect was the email from our VP of product. Subject line, "Are you ready?" Inside, "We're ready to move you to lead. If you are. Let's talk when you're back. Well-deserved, Noah." I stared at it for a while. I'd been quietly grinding for years. Doing good work. Taking on extra projects. Mentoring junior devs. Never flashy, never loud. Just showing up, again and again, in the background. And now, someone finally saw it. Not because I begged, not because I paid for it, but because I earned it. And that felt different. I replied, I'm ready. That was the first domino. Over the next few weeks, I got back into routine. I started waking up early again, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I picked up my running shoes for the first time in months. Just to jog around the block at first, but it felt good to breathe. I cleaned out the spare room and turned it into a proper office. I ordered a real desk, not the cheap folding table I'd been using since I moved in. I started therapy. I told my therapist, a kind woman named Sienna, everything. The vacation, the group chat, the note on the fridge, the crying on the floor. She didn't interrupt, didn't rush to fix it. Just let me say it all. Then she looked at me and said, You've spent your whole life trying to be enough for people who don't know how to see you. That's exhausting, Noah. What would it look like if you stopped? I didn't have an answer, but I started trying to find one. Around that time, I reconnected with an old college friend, Mateo. He saw one of my Instagram stories. I'd posted a picture of a sunrise from my backyard with the caption, Still here. He messaged me, Yo, you alive? Want to get coffee? I said yes. Mateo was the kind of friend you didn't have to perform for. We hadn't talked in months, but the moment we sat down, it felt easy, real. I didn't go into the whole story, but I told him I'd just been through a rough family trip. He winced. Dude, he said, been there. Families can suck the soul out of you without even noticing. You okay? I will be, I said, and I meant it. We started hanging out again. Movies, hikes, late-night taco runs. He introduced me to his circle, artists, coders, musicians, weirdos. People who didn't care what job you had or how much you made. They just liked good stories and good company. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was auditioning. One night, a month or so after the trip, we were sitting around a bonfire in Mateo's backyard. Someone handed me a beer, someone else was passing a guitar around, and someone asked what I did. I told them about my job, but also that I'd recently started writing again. Just short stories. Nothing big. They asked to read one. I said maybe. Later that night, I walked home under the stars, buzzed on cheap beer and soft laughter, and thought, this is what I was chasing. Not family, not approval. Connection. Real connection. And here's the wild part. The more I stopped chasing my family's love, the more I started to see how little of it was ever really there. Not in the way I needed. Megan sent another text. Long apologetic. But hollow. She said, You're taking this too personally, which basically erased everything else. Caleb left a voicemail, tipsy sounding, saying, Come on, man, it was just jokes. You know we love you. But love that has to be proven with humiliation isn't love. It's control. And I was done with that. I didn't block them. I just stopped replying. In the silence that followed, I found something better than closure. I found peace. I started volunteering at a local mentorship program for teens interested in tech. I taught a few weekend classes. One kid, Marcus, reminded me a lot of myself at that age. Quiet, observant, desperate to be good at something. I helped him build his first app. He emailed me a week later saying, Thanks. No one's ever really believed in me like that before. That message made me cry harder than anything else had. I was rebuilding. Not loud, not dramatic. Just piece by piece. The rise was slow, uneven. There were still days I'd think about that chat thread and feel the burn. Still moments I'd catch myself wondering what it would have felt like if they'd just said, Thank you. But those moments got fewer. Softer. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't begging to be seen. I was learning to stand in the light by myself. And then, just as the wounds were finally starting to scab over, something unexpected showed up at my door. A package. No return address. Just my name, written in Megan's handwriting. Inside was something I hadn't seen in years. A photo. Me, Caleb, and Megan. Summer 2002. We were at the lake, sunburnt, grinning. I was holding a fishing rod too big for me, and Caleb had just splashed me. We looked like siblings. Real ones. Taped to the back was a note. You deserved better than we gave you. I'm sorry. I mean that. Call me when you're ready. I stared at that photo for a long time. And that's when the next part of the story began. I didn't call her. Not right away. For days, the photo sat on my desk, half tucked under my monitor like some kind of test. Every time I sat down to work, there it was, grinning versions of us frozen in time, before we all grew into roles we never asked for. Before the sarcasm. Before the guilt. before the realization that being family didn't mean being kind. Her note haunted me. You deserved better than we gave you. Part of me wanted to believe it. Desperately. That maybe this was the turning point. That Megan had finally stepped off her high horse and looked around. But the smarter part, the part that had been ignored at every dinner table, brushed off at every holiday, quietly ridiculed in every group chat, told me to be cautious. She hadn't said we were wrong. She hadn't said we're sorry for laughing at your kindness. Just that I deserved better. An acknowledgement of the symptom, not the disease. So I didn't call. Instead, I watched. Because when someone shows you who they are, you start noticing the ways they always were. It started with Caleb. A week after the package arrived, Mateo sent me a screenshot. He and I had stayed close. Closer than ever, really, and we'd started bouncing ideas off each other for a side project, a mentorship platform for first-gen tech kids. A proper, scalable one. Not just volunteer shifts, but a startup with teeth. The screenshot was of Caleb's Instagram story. He was in LA, shirtless on a rooftop pool, holding a glass of something obnoxiously orange. The caption? Some people buy vacations to feel loved. Others just live. I didn't need to wonder who he was talking about. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Mateo already knew the backstory. Instead, I saved the screenshot. Later that night, I opened the group chat thread again. I hadn't touched it since the trip. It still hurt. That buzzing, acidic hurt that makes your ears warm and your teeth clench. But this time, I wasn't looking for pain. I was looking for patterns. And what I found was a goldmine. It was like they couldn't help themselves. Megan and Caleb, especially. Screenshots, gossip, petty jabs. They'd been mocking me for months before the trip. Long before the towels and spreadsheets. They called it the Noah Project. Megan even made a meme at one point. A Photoshop picture of me holding a whiteboard with the caption, "How to win family affection in 3 easy payments." I read every message. Every LOL. Every "can you believe this?" Every sarcastic emoji. I took notes. Captured timestamps. Backed up the chat. And when I was done, I sat back and thought, all right, so this is what we're dealing with. This wasn't immaturity. This was entitlement. I didn't want revenge that looked like anger. I wanted precision. I wanted them to feel what I had felt, not in cruelty, but in clarity, to finally see the impact of their choices. And the best way to do that was to let them come to me. So I waited. A week after the package, Megan called. I didn't pick up. She called again 2 days later. Then Caleb texted, "Yo, Meg's trying to reach you. You good?" I ignored him, too. Instead, I started digging. The more I pulled at the thread, the more it unraveled. Turns out, Caleb was between jobs. Again, his last contract gig dried up 2 months before the vacation. He was living with a friend in LA, hoping to land a podcast deal that hadn't materialized. He was broke, but you wouldn't know it from his feed. Megan was worse. On the surface, she looked like the picture of suburban efficiency, married with 2 kids, part-time copywriting job, homeowner. But behind the scenes, she was drowning. Her husband had lost his job last fall. They were 2 months behind on mortgage payments. Their car lease was up soon, and she was quietly trying to convince my parents to help just until things stabilize. None of this was my business, technically, but they had made me their business for years, laughing at my job, my home, my singleness, my quietness. Now they needed help, and I had leverage, not financial leverage. That's what they expected. What I had now was truth. The power to expose the version of themselves they thought no one saw. The chats, the comments, the jokes, and more importantly, the receipts of what I had done for them, quietly and without fanfare. But that wasn't my endgame. I didn't want to destroy them. I wanted them to see me. And nothing reveals character like the moment someone realizes they've burned the bridge they still need to cross. So I made a plan. First, I scheduled a dinner. A real one. Neutral location. I booked a cozy, quiet Italian place in town, and I sent a simple message to Megan, Caleb, and my parents. Dinner next Saturday. Just us. 7 p.m. My treat. Megan replied first. Really? Thank you. Then Caleb, free food? I'm there. My mom took longer, but finally sent. Looking forward to it. Love you. I didn't reply. The days leading up to the dinner were oddly peaceful. I felt like someone watching chess pieces shift into place. At work, I accepted the new lead position with grace and quiet confidence. I even hosted a Zoom seminar for interns about emotional resilience in tech. The irony wasn't lost on me. In the background, Matteo and I finalized the prototype for the mentorship platform. We pitched it to an angel investor friend of his. Just a rough meeting, no expectations. The guy loved it, asked for a full deck and roadmap. Suddenly, we were building something real. I spent the night before the dinner prepping. Not a speech, not a rant, just a collection of facts. I printed screenshots, timeline summaries, financial breakdowns, every booking from the vacation, labeled and color-coded. Not to shame, to show. Because these people lived in a fog of denial, and I was ready to part the clouds. The night of the dinner, I arrived early. The restaurant was dimly lit, all warm wood and soft jazz. I chose a round table near the back. Intimate, no distractions. I sat there with a folder in my bag and fire in my chest. They arrived together. Megan in a soft blue blouse, Caleb in a bomber jacket, my parents holding hands like they were walking into church. They smiled when they saw me. I didn't smile back. We sat. We ordered. Small talk started. The kids, the weather, some new show on Netflix. I let it happen. I let them settle. I let them pretend this was normal. Then, after the appetizers came, I reached into my bag. Before we eat, I said, there's something I need to share. They all looked at me, forks midair. I pulled out the folder, placed it on the table. Inside were the screenshots, the chat logs, the receipts, the total cost of the vacation, highlighted at the bottom, $5,842.71. Silence. Caleb blinked. Megan's face drained of color. My mom looked confused. My dad looked tired. I found the group chat, I said calmly. All of it. The memes, the jokes, the comments about how I was trying to buy your love, the threads about me being overbearing, desperate, sad. Megan opened her mouth. I held up a hand. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to clarify. You don't have to love me. You don't have to appreciate me. But what you don't get to do is rewrite reality. I looked each of them in the eye. I paid for everything. Not because I wanted to feel needed, but because I thought, for a second, that this family might want to feel whole again. My voice cracked. Just slightly. Enough. And instead, you made me the villain of a vacation I built for you. You mocked me. Privately. Repeatedly. And then smiled to my face. Megan whispered, Noah, but I kept going. I'm not asking for anything. I'm not even mad anymore. But I needed you to see what you did. Not filtered through your intentions, but through your impact. Silence. And then, for the first time in my life, I watched them squirm. Caleb looked away. My mom stared at her lap. Megan's hands trembled. I leaned back, took a sip of water, and said, enjoy the food. I'll be leaving before dessert. Then I stood up. I reached into my wallet, pulled out a prepaid gift card, and placed it on the table. Covers the bill, I said. So no one has to worry about me trying to buy love. And with that, I walked out. But that was only the beginning. What came after, the messages, the fallout, the final reckoning, is something you're going to want to hear. I thought walking out of that restaurant would be the end of it. I pictured it so clearly. A quiet exit, the sound of my footsteps down the hallway, the click of the door as I left my family in stunned silence behind me. No one chasing me into the parking lot. No teary apology. Just them, finally staring at the reflection they'd spent years avoiding, and me, free at last. And in a way, that was the end of trying. But not the end of the story. Because people like Megan and Caleb don't know how to sit with silence. They need noise, control, an explanation to twist into their version of events. So naturally, they didn't wait long. The next morning, I woke up to a barrage of missed calls. 7 from Megan, 3 from Caleb. A message from my mom that started with, I don't understand why you had to humiliate us like that, and ended with, this isn't how family behaves. The irony practically lit itself on fire. I didn't reply, but Caleb didn't take the hint. 2 days later, I came home from a walk to find him sitting on the hood of my car in my driveway, arms crossed. Wearing sunglasses like this was a music video and not an ambush. Yo, he said, as if we were still boys in a dorm room and not estranged siblings with a wall of betrayal between us. Can we talk? I didn't say anything, just walked past him, unlocked the front door, and left it open. He followed. Inside, he tried to lean against the kitchen counter like he owned the place. Classic Caleb. Never met a boundary he didn't ignore. Look, man, he started. That dinner? That was rough. I didn't answer. Just poured myself a glass of water and waited. He sighed. I get it. Okay, you're mad. We said stuff. Stupid stuff. But like, it was jokes, Noah. That's how we are. You know that. Do I? I asked quietly. He faltered. I mean, yeah. We razz each other all the time. You call it razzying, I said. But no one else got a private group chat. No one else got edited memes. You didn't make fun of Megan for planning her kids' birthday parties. You didn't call mom desperate for baking casseroles. Just me. Just the guy trying to make it easier for everyone. He ran a hand through his hair. We didn't mean for it to get that far. Honestly, I didn't think you'd take it like that. That's the problem, I said. You never think. Not about how your words land. Not about who you hurt. It's always just jokes with you, Caleb. But the punchline is always at someone else's expense. He went quiet. Then, after a beat, he said, well, I came to ask a favor. And there it was. The real reason. I didn't even blink. What do you need? He shifted. So, I'm kinda in between gigs right now. I was supposed to get into this creator house deal. You know, content stuff, networking, whatever. But they pulled out. And I'm trying to keep my podcast going, but I need gear. New mic, editing suite, laptop. I figured maybe you could spot me, just to get things rolling again. I laughed. I couldn't help it. Not a joyful laugh. A hollow one. The kind you give when you realize the person in front of you has no shame. You want me to fund your podcast, I said. Not fund, like help. You've got the job, the house, the side hustle. You're doing good, man. And you thought showing up after months of mocking me would be the way to get a loan. He looked annoyed now, like I was being difficult. I said I was sorry. No, you didn't, I said. You said that dinner was rough. You said we razz each other. You never said you were sorry for treating me like a joke. You never said you regretted it. You just showed up with your hand out. His jaw clenched. So that's it, huh? You're gonna be petty now? After everything we've been through. I stepped forward, calm as ice. Petty would be posting the screenshots online. Petty would be forwarding them to mom's church group. Petty would be texting your ex those DMs I found from when you were still with her. His face went pale. You wouldn't. I won't, I said. Because I don't need to. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for clarity. You don't get to insult me, diminish me, then expect help like nothing happened. That version of me is gone. He stared at me, mouth open. No words. Now get off my property. He left. Slowly. Bitterly. Like he couldn't believe the golden goose had closed the door. But I wasn't done. Because while Caleb tried to climb his imaginary ladder, Megan had started her own campaign, the guilt tour. She sent long emails. Apologies laced with passive aggression. I just want us to be okay again, she wrote. The kids miss their uncle. They don't understand why you're being so distant. She even posted a family throwback photo on Facebook, captioned, "We don't always get it right, but family is forever." The comments were full of awe and beautiful family. And even a few "Where's Noah?" replies. I didn't answer. Instead, I made my move, subtle, surgical, and deeply satisfying. See, that mentorship startup Mateo and I were building? It had legs. After our pitch, we got a seed round from 2 angel investors. Not huge money, but enough to launch a beta and build a team. Guess who applied for a remote admin position we posted? Megan's husband. I nearly didn't notice. He applied under a different email, but his resume gave it away. Marketing experience, location, family details, it was him. No cover letter. Just a shot in the dark. I showed Mateo. Want me to toss it? He asked. I thought for a moment, then smiled. No, let's interview him. We did. Zoom call. Professional. Brief. He was polite, slightly nervous. Clearly hadn't put it together. Told us he was looking for something stable, remote, flexible. Said his wife was stressed lately, and he was trying to take pressure off. Totally understand, I said. We value loyalty here. Integrity. Transparency. He nodded. 2 days later, I sent a rejection email. Politely worded, but final. And I knew Megan would feel it. Not immediately, but eventually. When he came home and told her. When she asked what company it was. When she realized the name. When she remembered who helped co-found it. And that, more than any confrontation, was enough. I didn't need a meltdown. I didn't need a blow-up. I just needed them to know. To sit in the consequences of their own choices. To realize that the person they treated like a doormat had quietly built something solid under their feet and walked away while they stumbled. I wish I could say the fallout was cinematic. That they begged. That there was a dramatic scene on a rainy street corner. But real life isn't a movie. It's quieter, colder, more permanent. They stopped calling. Eventually, the texts trickled down to none. My mom sent one last message a few weeks later. "We don't know what else to say. I hope you're happy. I really do." I didn't reply. Because I am happy. Not because I got revenge. Not because I outmaneuvered them. But because I finally stopped fighting for scraps from people who were never willing to give. I stopped begging to be seen. I started living as if I mattered, because I do. And now, my life is full of people who see that. Friends who show up. Work that fulfills me. A startup that's already changing lives. I mentor. I run. I laugh. I am whole. And as for them, they're free to keep telling their version of the story. That I'm cold. That I walked away. That I held a grudge. But deep down, they know the truth. Because in the end, I didn't burn the bridge. I just made sure they could never cross it again. And I smiled as I watched them finally realize the door was never locked. They were just never invited back.